would JYU be a good place for student athletes to come here? And what would be your case for it?
That city offers a lot of opportunities, and even if you don't want to play like in a high level, there's always like, I guess, so many different levels where you can like kind of find how you want to play and like what level, how much you want to put in time for the sports, but also like get very good education too.
Tervetuloa. Welcome back to the JYU For You podcast. My name is Irfan Durmic and I'm still your host with the most glasnost. Today we're joined by our friend Anton, who is a sports ambassador at the University of Jyväskylä, but he actually studied a little bit in the United States of America, and he gives us a perspective why he came back to Finland, what is it like to be a student athlete at JYU, and what is it like to study marketing as a master's student at JYU. I hope you will enjoy. Cheers. Let's start off with this. So you're telling me you did an apro last night.
Yes.
So that was the Riemu Apro, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you did the Apro last night. You also had home game.
Home
game. And you also had an exam this week.
Yes.
Somebody had an eventful week. So where do we want to start off? How was it doing an exam in your own mother tongue after how many years?
Jesus. Like 8 years maybe? Since like high school, writing Finnish. So it was not pleasant. If that's the right way to put it. No, it wasn't fun. I was struggling with the Finnish, but I think it's coming there though now with, studying back in Finland. So
does it kind of feel like, you haven't ridden a bike in forever and then you just like, you gotta start riding it again?
That's a good way of putting it, I guess. Yeah. It was like hard to like, I guess it's like easy to understand stuff, but it's like hard to translate them back to Finnish, like finding like the right words.
Oh yeah, finding like the right terminology. And
yeah.
Every field has its own terminology. You're studying marketing right now,
yes,
right?
marketing,
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you study that before, or like, what was your bachelor's again?
So I studied business marketing in the States. So that's kind of like my field. So I kind of just got into here.
Okay. We'll get to the little American detour just because I'm personally kind of at least slightly curious about it. But tell me a little bit about the Riemu Apro, because that's one of the ones that I've heard of it, but I've never gone to. Like, what's the concept?
So it's just a basic opera, but the first event is our game. Game. We had like 400 or 500 people maybe watching it yesterday. So it was actually very fun to play because there's actually like
a crowd.
If it gets you it gives you energy when you're playing.
Oh yeah, especially like when it's home turf and you can actually.
Yeah, it was also like we played one of the best teams in the league too. So it was like kind of like the battle, I guess, of the first place kind of right now. So it was fun game, tight one. We lost, but
how close was it?
Was it 6-4 loss?
Wait, but that's
close one. I mean, they scored like 2 minutes left in the third period to get the 5-4 goal, and then just an empty netter for 6-4. So it was a tight one, but I think the crowd was liking it. Or that was the feedback I got last night after,
the event.
The event, yeah.
But when you're in the field, like, can you really feel the energy of the crowd, or?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's like, especially when there's a crowd, you like hear it in the bench if they're like chanting, or like even if you like doing warm ups, you see people. It's like, oh, there's actually people here. So it's like it's like a weird sense, like. And when you're playing, of course, you're not like focusing on because you have to focus on what's going on the ice. But as like when you're sitting on the bench, like
you have that moment.
It's like, oh, there's actually somebody watching me. I have to like do. I don't know.
Actually, gotta put an effort into this.
Yeah. So it's like they always say, home field is like the home crowd is the sixth player on the ice.
Yeah, always the home field advantage.
Yeah.
Okay, now I gotta be embarrassed and say like I always forget that like there are 5 hockey players, right?
Yeah, 5 and the goalie.
Okay. So give like somebody who's like highly uneducated in hockey, which is kind of shameful considering that I live in Finland and I lived in New England. But
yeah,
he's like, yeah, I guess you should get educated. See, I had people try to force me to get into baseball, and then that kind of like killed my motivation for a lot of like U.S. oriented sports. But anyway, so what do you play as? Like,
so I'm the centerman. I play forward,
but
I've always played center. You get kind of involved all over the ice. So it's fun because if you're playing like a D-man, you just kind of defend, I guess. But
it gets boring.
I mean, hockey's changing so much, I think, as a sport right now to be like faster. So you have to kind of be good at everything now. So when like back in the day, it was like, okay, if you're a defenseman, you just defend. Forwards go do goals, go score.
But now everybody has to kind of do that.
Yeah, it's like especially like you kind of have to know all the spots or kind of at least have a sense of how to play it.
So going to how to play and like, you know, when you said back in the day, how did you get into hockey and when did you even start off?
So I started hockey when I was maybe 4 or 5. I can't remember where I actually skated the first time. I can't remember anymore, but I was 4 or 5. Played back in Helsinki, and then it's just kind of, I don't know, been sticking with it, and it's been fun. It just gives you, for me, it has given so many like opportunities, but also like good and bad moments. So you kind of like learn from them, and you like start appreciating things.
I think like a lot of people, you know, not a professional athlete, clearly, but I've been around a lot of, you know, student athletes and some professional athletes, and I always feel like people who have to be in the athletic world, you have to have like a very high level of discipline, organization, and whatever, and you learn so many things. So what is something that kind of like big that you learned from playing hockey?
If just taking like something that you can apply outside of like hockey, I think it's just like you have to work, you know, you have to just put in the work and like go the extra mile. If you don't, you go to a workplace, you know, if you're doing, you know, maybe one step or something, you know, more than the other one in the workplace, you know, you're probably going to you're going to be better. So I think it's one of those, like, you just have to kind of work and also have to like have self-discipline to actually like put in the work too. Like, you know, like, hey, we have a practice Monday, but it's like not mandatory. Are you going or are you not going?
You're going.
Yeah, you're going. If you want to, you know, be better. So I think that's, yeah.
And I guess also one of those things where it's, you know, you know what they say, meaningful things are not easy. For meaningful things, you got to put in effort. Something, if it isn't meaningful, you're never going to have to put in effort.
Yeah.
So you put in a lot of effort to become a good hockey player, and that had some benefits for you when it comes to education, didn't it?
I mean, yeah, you know, I think, you know, when you're studying too, you have to put in work to learn things. So it's like when you play hockey, you know, you put in the work, you study, you put in the work, you get results.
So one result that I want to focus on in particular right now is, so you studied in Finland, went through high school and whatever, the entire system. Lukio, I assume?
Yeah.
The same. Okay. So how did you end up in the middle of Vermont? And also, I love the name of the college. Is it a college or a university?
So it's actually a funny story.
Uh-huh.
The school, where I graduated from, it was called Castleton University. But year after I graduated, all the Vermont like smaller schools combined to Vermont State University. So it's part of like a bigger school. So technically the school doesn't on paper exist anymore, although it's like just a part of like a bigger university now.
So wait, did they like join up all the universities in the area? Or
Yeah, there was. So I think they combined the university with like 6 other schools in Vermont area. So.
Oh, that's actually pretty cool. Then it like turned into like a huge place.
I think it was just to like, I guess, offer students more
opportunities. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it would kind of make sense. You know, relatively small state, middle of nowhere for all of them. So then, if you can at least go from one middle of nowhere to another middle of nowhere, you have some sort of a connection.
Yeah.
But how did you end up there?
So after high school, I was, you know, okay, I was playing hockey. I was, you know, graduated. I was like, okay, what do I want to do? I applied to like universities here in Finland, and maybe I wasn't the best student back in high school. So I was like, okay, I need to put in the work to now maybe, you know, focus more on the, you know, the application process and like the exams back in the day. And then I actually got an offer to play hockey in Canada. Went there for the, you know, the winter time and learned about the whole system in the US where combining sports and like education is actually like, it's built in the system very well. So I was like, okay, now there's something here because, you know, I want to get educated, but also I want to keep playing. And I was like, okay, maybe this is the right route for me because for me, it was always like, okay, combining sports in Finland in university is going to be very tough. And it's like, I had no experience or not like I didn't know anybody who was doing it. So I was
Mhm.
like, okay, maybe going to US might be the best way, I guess, of doing it. And then after playing in Canada, I played 1 year of hockey here back in Finland again. And then I was just, applying to like schools and like talking to coaches in different universities. And I was like, well, this one place in the middle of nowhere in Vermont wants me. So, yeah, then I made the decision to just go there, and now we're here.
Hey, so when you were playing in Finland and when you were playing in Canada, was that all like, professional, or how did it work?
So it was just like junior hockey.
Uh-huh.
So like you have to pay, I guess, monthly fees, and like there's no money involved. Like you don't get anything.
Okay, so you were very much doing it, for your own soul, I guess.
Yeah, I guess in that sense, yeah. I mean, like playing juniors. If you play in like some big teams, like nobody gets paid, but you like everything is taken care of, so
Mm.
you don't have to pay. But I think in like if you think about just like hockey when you're like younger, you have to pay always.
Yeah, membership fee and like the
Yeah.
equipment and.
Yeah. So it was like just like junior hockey. That's how I would say it.
So did you have fun with it?
Oh yeah. It was like hockey has always been like the thing for me. I've always like it just gives you so many like memories, I guess. Like the atmosphere with like, 20 guys talking in the locker room like 6 times a week, hanging out. So it's like it gives you very good memories and like a lot of friends too. Like when you're like, especially for me, like going to another like different countries and everything, you always kind of have that 25 friends already there. So it's like very easy to like get into the new places and learning from there. Like, okay, hey, where did we get breakfast? Oh, this place is good.
You get kind of like this extended family by default.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
But doesn't it then get tricky when you have to move around and then you're kind of like letting go of those extended families? First playing in Finland, you kind of like let go of that family, go to Canada, then the States, and then back here. And it like, isn't there a layer of difficulty to that?
I mean, there was always like, keep like normal relationships with like friends and stuff. It's always hard to keep them if you're like moving or, going to another city or with a job or just, life happens, I guess. But I mean, nowadays it's easy. You have FaceTime or, Snapchat or anything. It's just like, you can keep connections with a lot of guys around the world too. So it's like easier, I guess, to stay in touch with some people. But of course you lose some, people
Some connections, yeah.
because you weren't maybe that close when you were playing with them because it's 20 to 35 people. You're not going to be close with anybody, right? So
Yeah, you're not going to be buddies with everybody, So somebody's going to be like a brother, another person's going to be like, fifth cousin, second removed, or whatever those like family relationships, how they
Yeah.
work. So what did it feel like when you moved then exactly into the States, How did it feel to balance out between academics and sports, and how did you guys handle the pandemic?
So going to US and studying and like combining sports is very easy because like pretty much the programs are run also by the schools. So you get all the schedules pretty much beforehand and they like tell you, hey, okay, take these classes. You're going to have practice at this time. Don't have anything at this time. So it's very easy to like, I guess, have the timetable, the weekly schedule set down. And also I guess it came down as like a routine. Like for me, 4 years, we always practiced at the same time, the whole 4 years. So it was like, okay, we have what? Monday, 6 a.m. practice? Okay, it's Monday, 6 a.m., 4 years. Okay, it's easy. So it was like the way they schedule, like scheduling is very easy there because it's like, I guess, built in the system and they have a lot of knowledge because that's how, I guess, most universities in like states function. Yeah. It's like anything about like big sports like football.
Yeah.
It's like in the system.
Yeah, football, lacrosse, hockey, all of those things,
Yeah.
kind of like get straight into it. When you were applying, did you have to go through that entire procedure, the SAT, ACT, Common App applications, or could you go a little bit of an easier route with the sports?
So I guess sports just kind of like opened the door for the universities. Like, okay, I was first always talking mostly with the coaches and then, okay, coach says, okay, we want you. Send in your like, I think I did an SAT.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have to do the English test. Some schools require some English test. I don't remember the name.
Oh,
of it.
the TOEFL, I think.
Yeah,
probably.
yeah.
TOEFL or whatever it's pronounced.
Yeah. For some reason, they didn't need the score from me for that one.
Hmm.
I don't know if it was because of my high school diploma or.
I think that might be because of Finland. I think Finland is one of those like countries that has an exception when you're applying for a bachelor's in the States, but don't quote me on it.
Yeah, it could be that, but I think there's some schools required it, so I was like, okay, I can't apply there because I didn't do it.
Yeah.
But then you just pretty much send your high school diplomas, SAT scores, and then I guess the school does like the individual like, okay, is this person qualified to actually study in university and get like a bachelor's degree? So it's very, I guess like in US you can apply kind of whenever, in a sense.
Yeah, yeah.
There's not like mandated times. Okay, you have to be in like March. And here, like in Finland, March, you have 2 weeks, apply, that's it. And then they review and you get results. When there, it's like you can apply to schools in January, February, whenever, June, July. And then I guess they just review it like,
Yeah, sometimes it can be like the rolling admissions. I think that's
Yeah.
what it's called. Sometimes there are like some fixed deadlines. Sometimes it's pay a lot of money to the Common App to get an application sent. So it's like that's the phenomenon of a huge country. You have like so
Yeah.
many little diverse options.
Yeah.
But I guess for you, we can say it's kind of like a cool story. The Finnish education system and the sports infrastructure here prepared you perfectly to go to the States, and I mean also Canada.
yeah, I guess that's very well, like very good way to put it.
Yeah, that's what would make the Ministry of Education happy when we put it like that.
Uh,
But I think it's true. I mean, I have a buddy. He literally went to the worst high school in Finland, and he's crushing it at Yale right now.
yeah.
So I think that can tell you, like, the difference in the educational systems.
Oh yeah, I think the funniest thing was when I think about like actually studying in the US was one of the first like lectures and like essays I had to like submit, and the professor came back to me like, "Your English is so good. How is this possible?" I was like, "What do you like?" I was like kind of like bamboozled by the question. Like, what do you mean? Yeah, it's like very good. It's like kind of better than some of the actual like local students. Maybe that's just the difference between the education systems and the infrastructure, but.
I think the good thing that Finland always has, because of the, at least from the perspective of the high school system, it's kind of like it's on a high level throughout the country. You don't
Yeah.
have like a huge discrepancy between it. Versus in the States, unfortunately for them, it's a lot based on local taxes.
Yeah.
And then some high schools, if you're in a poor neighborhood, the high school is just going to be on a pretty low level, and then the colleges kind of have to normalize
Yeah.
for that, and it gets a little bit tricky. But we're not here to solve American educational issues. We're not paid enough for that.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, if one of the new presidents wants us in their administration, I think we could be bought for the right price.
Yeah.
Not under $1 million.
Yeah.
But so what brought you back?
So for me, it was always, getting bachelor's degree. I was like, okay, I kind of want to live back in Finland when, I'm done with hockey. I'm done with everything, exploring the world. And I was like, okay, I'm looking at the business field in Finland. Okay, I need master's degree is kind of maybe needed
Yeah.
or it opens a lot of doors. So I was like, okay, I need my master's degree somewhere. And I was like, okay, I want to be back in Finland. And then, I was looking through schools, looking like, okay, where are good marketing programs? Where should I apply to? And then I applied to Turku, Tampere, and Jyväskylä. And now I'm in Jyväskylä.
So before we even get into like the why JYU and whatever, something that I'm really curious about is why the desire to come back to Finland? Is it like just family connection? And there's no right or wrong answer. I'm just kind of curious on your personal perspective. Is it family connections? Is it just vibing with the culture better? Thought you might have better career opportunities, or because you were clearly successful and it worked out for you in the States, as far as I can tell. So you could have made a career there, I'm assuming.
I probably could have. Honestly, sometimes I've thought about it, like why I just didn't stay there and like maybe just go in the workforce. But I think for me it was always like, okay, like you're from Finland. Home is always home. So I was like, okay, I have my all the good friends are back in here in Finland and my family is here, and like I was like, okay, maybe it's time to be back in like actually in, like home, where it's kind of familiar with everything you do. Like you have your favorite stuff in the grocery stores, and like you're like just the basic stuff is like easy when you're like available. I guess the stuff is available here that you're like used to. when sometimes when you're living abroad, it's like, oh, I don't have this now. What do I get?
Or you could just say that you miss the healthcare.
Yeah, true. That's true. Yeah.
But I guess, in a sense, like, the home field advantage of there are certain things in the culture that you just appreciate and enjoy
Yeah.
so much that you're just like, this was a nice little excursion, but let's get back to home field.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way of putting it. Like, it was fun to live abroad and learning about like different places, seeing a lot of different places, like meeting with like people from around the world and learning about other places, like cultures and stuff. But home is home.
So what did it feel like to be back? Because I mean, you weren't here for like essentially 4 years?
So I lived after graduating. I lived in Sweden also for like the 2 winters
Oh,
around the place. But I think being back and actually like living now back in Finland for I don't have any plans to actually like go anywhere else now, or like just fly off to another country and live there. I think it's just like I think it's like I'm just like happy to be back in a way. It's like everything is like you don't need to like I guess stress about some stuff, like especially in like US, like okay, how does the healthcare system work, for example, or like what about like my insurance, like how does that thing work, or what if actually something happens? I'm 8,000 kilometers away, so it's like
yeah, don't give me the freedom units. I saw you tempted.
yeah.
You were about to say miles.
I was about to say, I was like, oh, I don't know.
So a little bit of like, the Americanism has remained.
Yeah,
And I hear you went to McDonald's, so I guess it's still there.
yeah.
So McDonald's or Hesburger, totally unrelated, but no, McDonald's or Hesburger, you need to make a choice.
I guess McDonald's. I guess so. I mean, honestly, I tried to stay away from those places anyway.
Don't worry, we'll cut this out. We'll cut this part out. So why JYU?
I think when I was looking at places, I was like, okay, I didn't want to apply to Alda because I had to do that GMAT, and doing that is expensive. And I guess I learned, like, I had friends in the sports and health science department,
Mhm.
and I learned about a lot of heard a lot of good things about Jyväskylä as a city. I don't know, it's big, but it's also small. So it's like very compact, and you have kind of everything very close to you. Like 10-minute walk, you can be pretty much anywhere in the city, or like 10-minute bike ride. You have access to a lot of things, and also this is a beautiful city. We got the lake there, and like I think the best view is if you've been to Viilu yet.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I was there one night in like March last year, and the lights on the bridge going to Kuokkala,
Oh yeah.
and just being in the hot tub, I was like, this place actually this looks good. It feels like a home now. Feels like a home.
It's one of those, who needs an American dream when you have that?
Yeah.
No, but I do agree with you on the views, especially, Viilu is very nice. I am kind of partial towards, ever been on the 5th floor of Agora?
No.
Okay, I mean, you're a marketing student.
Yeah.
You got to do that for yourself. So there's like those kind of like egg-looking chairs where you can just kind of like lean into it.
Yeah.
So they put one of those there, and you can see like the entire lake on like a nice, fall day. It's perfect.
I need to go explore Agora more, I think.
No, but it's one of those like awesome things I think also about the campus. Even there is that whole thing of I don't know about you, but just it's so calming when you look around you. It's like, oh, so peaceful, nice,
Yeah.
kind of like picturesque. But okay, so kind of curious, when you were looking into the universities, were you also at the same time thinking about the sports opportunities, or what came first? Was it, oh, let me find, like, is there a team that I can join and then think about the university, or was it university and then team?
I don't know if I have an answer for that, honestly. I think it was when I was applying, I was kind of just like, okay, I'm going to apply. But also, I guess I had back in my head, okay, what places kind of have teams where I might be able to play to. And then here in Jyväskylä, I was like, okay, there's this Liikunnan Riemu. I was like, okay, I heard a lot of good things off the team from like close hockey guy friends and stuff. I was like, okay, maybe if I get in there, that might be, the next step where I'm gonna play, and now I'm playing there, and I'm very happy to be here.
So was it difficult to get into the team?
We had tryouts in start of August, and I think what I've heard from the older players who played here before me, like there was the first year there was a lot more players actually during the first weeks, because I guess they had pretty good run end of the year last year. I think they got some like interest from players around in Finland.
To join.
Also, like I guess they got like there was like more focus, I guess, around the team because they were playing very well end of last season. So I guess there was like attraction to the team.
So how do you manage, both the studies and the sports perspective nowadays?
For me, I think now it's like when I think about my schedule, it's like more open here. Like more, you have like everything's kind of in your own hands in a sense. Like compared to US, like where it's like okay, ding 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 ding. This
Yeah, like a soldier.
Yeah, and here it's more like okay, when do I have practice? I might have lectures, and then you have the free time, and then it's more like, especially as a master student, individual studying, and like putting in the work. When you have, maybe Monday you don't have any lectures, you have to actually, block out, okay, this, I'm going to be at Lahde studying, or am I going to go somewhere else to study? Because, you have to do that individual studying too. That's required, I guess, to manage your studies too. And from sports side, it's like we practice 2 to 3 times a week, and then we have usually 1 or 2 games, and then we have like individual like swim sessions. We like you just go to the gym and do what the program tells you to do, I guess. So managing, it's more like just scheduling your like weekly like calendar to look like, okay, where's the time to like practice, when is the time to have lectures, when do I eat, when do I do other grocery shopping or wash laundries or like something.
But I think that's like great prep for the real world, because every employer wants their employees to be capable of like, hey, I want you to know how you can manage yourself and organize yourself. And one of the cool things that you kind of mentioned where you can get here is, you are essentially your own master. So you got to be able to decide, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to keep everything organized. When you do the individual gym sessions, do you have do you use one of the gyms at the university or?
Yeah, so I bought the UMove. So I go to the, what's that? Monnari.
Oh, above my pay grade, sorry.
that place. So that's where I usually go for the gyms. I was thinking about looking, because there's so many, because in the city there's a lot of like actual like, private gyms too, but I was like, okay, the price is
a little bit
higher compared to the UMove price. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, I might as well, if there's already one offer for university students, might as well use it.
Yeah.
So speaking of like, I mean, we've been speaking about sports the last half an hour, but like drilling into like one particular sports day. So what made you decide to be a sports ambassador? What do you even do as a sports ambassador? Is it just like, you go to schools and try to see a student and ask them if they could do 20 push-ups, if they can do 20 push-ups perfect? You're like, okay, come on over, or what's the concept?
So it's a new concept. We're like, when the application process was during the last spring, there was like new spot, because it's a new spot here. There hasn't been any sports ambassadors before. So it was part of, I guess now, like when we got hired, me and Helmi got hired, it's like, okay, you have to kind of plan out what the sports ambassadors actually do too. So it's been a very fun process of actually like, okay, how do we kind of market the university as a place where you can also play sports, but also actually combine very good studies too. So that's kind of the process, and we're like, there's plans of like doing meetings with other like high schools and telling like high school students like, hey, in Jyväskylä there's a lot of teams, you can play, you can study, you can do everything here. You don't need to leave the country, I guess.
Says the guy who left for a little bit.
That's the guy who left, yeah.
But okay, then give me your pitch. Why would student athletes decide to come here?
I think in Jyväskylä it's like there's a lot of sports places where you can actually like practice. There's a lot of teams you can like play for. And also I think it's easy here because the campus is small, the city is small. So it's like it's easy to be here as a student athlete, as everything's kind of close. You don't need to worry about, okay, the tennis courts are 20 minutes away from the like city. How do I get there? So it's more like, okay, I just walk or bike. So I think there's like, it's easy to be a student because everything is close and there's a lot of opportunities to play for and like practice.
So I mean, there's that infrastructure.
Yeah.
There's both on the university side of having kind of U Move like you mentioned, and just maybe like a big distinction to mention. The sports teams in the city, they're not affiliated necessarily with the university, right?
Yeah.
Because that's one of those big. I mean, it took me also a while when I just got here because I got used to the concept in the States of like, oh, if it's a sports team in a university city, it's owned by the university. It's like, no. These are like completely unrelated.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them are not even in Jyväskylä. I know there's one volleyball team now. Now it escapes me the name, but it's like maybe 15, 20 kilometers away. Or not even 15, 20 kilometers, 15, 20 minutes by bus.
Yeah.
15, 20 kilometers. Crazy. But I think also another maybe good thing is, nutrition. And I think the one thing that makes it a lot easier, I mean, you can tell me as an actual athlete, do you think the student restaurants are beneficial for student athletes?
I use them once or twice every day.
Really?
Because it's like, okay, maybe I have a lecture or like something, and okay, then I'm gonna have lunch. Then I might go home, study for a little bit, and okay, we have practice at the evening. What do I do before I go to practice? I just go to one of the restaurants and eat, and then I don't need to like worry about cooking that much, especially with the lunches. So I can just focus on maybe actually cooking one dinner every day or making something I can just eat during the nights.
No, but I think that's a lifesaver.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's like makes your weekly schedule easy, and it's like you just kind of walk in and you see there's so many options here too in the city. Maybe 10 different?
11-ish, I think. 11-ish.
So there's always a lot of options you can choose from.
You got a preferred place?
I think I spend most of my time in Agora or Lahde.
You gotta give Maya a chance. I tell that to everybody. That's the one in the math department. The greatest benefit is if you're a coffee drinker, I think the coffee mugs are the biggest there.
I have to try that out then. I drink coffee, so I have to try that out then.
Always been a coffee drinker or just...
Sorry?
Have you always been a big coffee drinker or...
Yeah, I guess especially in the US it kind of got out of hand. Dunkin' Donuts.
We're calling Dunkin' coffee? I mean, listen, I can't judge the amount of matcha lattes that I've had from Dunkin' Donuts. It still shows. It still shows. It's not all from the camera. But so, what's your vision nowadays for the sports ambassadors?
I think
do you have any more of broader perspective?
What do you
like anything concrete that you guys are really looking forward to doing?
I think for us to is key to actually show the daily schedules and how you actually manage studies and like sports, because it's not connected here between the university and the sports teams. So I think for us it's to actually educate about your opportunities and how you just manage. And it's actually for me right now my schedule is I don't really have that many lectures, so I can actually kind of practice whenever I'm at hockey. We have we have the team practices, but if I want to go put in extra effort somewhere, I can just go to the gym in the morning or something. So it's for us it's to actually show about opportunities in Jyväskylä, and also teaching about hey, you can always manage sports and studies if you just wanna. I guess if you want to just do it or have the mindset, okay, I kind of want to plan for the long term. As you get older, sports maybe is not the thing you can do anymore.
Yeah.
One injury or something. So then it's okay, I have this backup plan, or I can fall into, or then when you just done with sports, you can just kind of work
orient yourself towards something else, a more direct career.
Yeah.
So I guess you're kind of your guys' short-term goal is, just put yourselves out there, try to troubleshoot with potential students, show them hey, maybe, maybe you have these concerns, we can kind of help you alleviate them and show you that there is this infrastructure, and also having that in a sense, I guess backup is an okay word in this case, if the sports career doesn't work out for a professional level, or if you just decide you want to have something else, you can do that transition.
Yeah.
Was that something kind of that you had on your mind when you were going into marketing, or?
I think when I was, choosing what I want to study. Going to the US, I was like, okay, I kind of want to work in the business field some way. And I was like, okay, marketing kind of offers opportunities everywhere. You can kind of be, you can kind of focus on where you want to then, I guess, switch into. So I was like, okay, marketing is the place for me. And then coming here, it's like, okay, marketing is actually the really, really the thing I want to do. I've like, especially now with the few first courses I've had, I was like, okay, this is the thing I want to do when sports is done. So, yeah.
But when are you going to be done with the sports? Is there a plan for that even?
There isn't a plan for that. I don't know.
Keep pushing through, like, until you feel the back pain. You're like, okay, maybe this is...
It might be already there.
Yoga. Get one of those yoga classes from YouMove.
I've actually looked into those. I'm not kidding.
Oh, I've actually been thinking about it for years, honestly, because I've had like a horrible lower back for like I think since the pandemic.
Yeah.
And then every time I'm like, maybe a yoga class. But it's like, the male ego, like, do I really want to go to a yoga class? And then it's honestly nice though. I did it for free a little bit, like before the pandemic, dude. It was so worthwhile.
I've been to a few yoga classes like somewhere else, and it's like always like, why is my back not moving? And then it's like you do the yoga, and it's like, oh, now it's actually kind of moving now.
No, it's perfect. No, yoga plus swimming. Give it a shot.
I've never tried that. I only do sauna and swimming.
Okay, that's
maybe
also,
that's the Finnish way.
Dumb question. Did you miss the sauna while you were in the States?
A little bit. But there was actually one like team we played against every year, and they had a sauna in the locker room. And let's just say it was one of the highlights always going to that place, because I was like, guys, put on the sauna. And I remember still one story. I think we lost the game. I don't even know how much. And after the game, we just went to the sauna, and the team, everybody's kind of pissed. Losing the game, and it's just me and two other Finnish guys were in the sauna. And one of the local US guys opens the door, and I'm like, what are you guys doing? I was in the sauna. Oh, okay. Closes the door. We're just there like, maybe we should probably leave soon.
So what, you had like Finnish teammates?
Yeah, I had two Finnish teammates in US, and then when I was playing in Sweden, I had also I've had 2-3 different Finnish guys.
So wait, are you telling me there were 3 Finns in a random college in Vermont?
Yes.
So where are the other 2 guys now?
Other one of them is playing hockey in Latvia, right? Or Lithuania.
Mm-hmm.
Lithuania. Lithuania. And it plays in the Latvian league. And then the other one is studying, I think, in maybe Lappeenranta.
Oh, okay.
Getting his master's, and I think he's working too.
Oh, so that's kind of funny. Like all of you guys kind of came back to the area.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Everyone's been back here.
There's like, that Finnish itch. You're just like, at some point you want to come back. Just guiding you a little bit back for a second towards the studies.
Yeah.
Since you're, still relatively fresh as a student, like,
yeah.
What was it like? So like second month, essentially, third month of studies.
Yeah.
It would be dumb for me to ask you, like, what has it been like right now? I mean, like, you can't really judge after 3 months. But something I'm curious about is how did the tutoring work for you? Did you have like a tutor when you came to the university? Or?
So there's like master's tutors also.
Yeah.
Like when you have the new master students coming, and so there's tutors, and tutors help you to learn about the place and like kind of like the day-to-day stuff you have to like do so you get everything rolling, I guess. So it's very helpful when the tutors actually like come and like, hey, buy this, do this, avoid maybe these places, and like give you kind of like what they've learned through their years here. So it's always fun to like learn from the people who've actually been here, because they always have the best tips.
Hey, trial and error.
Yeah.
Were you nervous about anything when you were coming here?
Honestly, not really. I guess being in like living in other countries, it was actually like kind of calming, because I was like, okay, I need to just worry about moving stuff from Helsinki to here.
Yeah, way less of a problem.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Actually not living in 2 suitcases. It was actually funny. I can have most of my stuff with me.
Was there a bunch of stuff that was, stored for years, and now you're like, oh, I can actually...
I think it was always like, I had my stuff in my parents' place, and it was always like when I was leaving to, States or Sweden, I was like, okay, what do I pack? and it's like, okay, I got this, and then it's like, I can't take this. I don't have room for this, and it's like you have to kind of leave stuff back and like, what do I actually need? What do I don't need? So it's like you have to choose well, I guess, and then you realize sometimes like, oh, I took this. I don't need this. Why is this with me here in the States? I don't need this.
No, it changes like constantly. You know what you actually think is important. I mean, the amount of stuff that I brought to the States the first time I went there, compared the second time, and then when I came to Finland, like it's a constant rotation of things. The one thing that I think I stopped bringing were books. I realized at some point that's kind of waste. I can get them all digitally.
Yeah.
Through mostly legal means.
Yeah.
Audible, Audible is lovely. Audible is lovely. Not a sponsor, but it's lovely. I want to kind of bring us a little bit, towards the end. And there's one thing that I kind of appreciate about you. It's that you both have a local and an international perspective.
Yeah.
You have this very cool kind of like, I call it, kind of like this international drive. You want to explore the world, which I think is very common when you're an athlete. You just have this desire of like, want to go further, want to do more and whatever. And since you had this experience both in Canada, Sweden, eternal enemies, I guess.
Yeah.
At least in the hockey rinks. And the States, what do you think? Would JYU be a good place for student athletes from the States to come here? And what would be your case for it? Like, imagine just contextually, I guess, imagine exactly the student that's like, okay, you're, wrapping up their bachelor's, don't really want to do a PhD, would like to still stay a little bit at least involved with the sports world, but they're thinking about doing a master's, maybe getting a little bit of a perspective. What do you think? Would it be worthwhile here at JYU?
Well, if technically I'm that person, so I think yes, because there's a lot of students who probably also want to look into master's degrees, and as well as we know, Finland has pretty good like quality education here. So I think it would be like there could be a potential students, as there's so many students in the States. For example, I don't even know how many. Too many. So I think, especially thinking about JYU, is like it's big enough place for them to come here, because it's not like a random small town middle of nowhere, because that's how they look when they come here. But there's like also like the community here is like very like, I guess, athletic. When you think about, there's so many sports, like different sports teams. There's the capital of sports, I guess.
Yeah. The Finnish Athens, as they like to call it.
Yeah. So I think it would be easy for them to come here and like continue studying and like maybe playing their sport what they are, because that city offers a lot of opportunities. And even if you don't want to play like in a high level, there's always like, I guess, so many different levels where you can like kind of find how you want to play and like what level, how much you want to put in time for the sports, but also like get very good education too.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect place to stop. I do want to try and pressure you into one thing, or maybe not pressure you, encourage you. Since you have this massive, perspective for, potential future students, you think you'd be willing to be an international tutor?
Yeah, maybe. Why not? Honestly, yeah, I'm just gonna say yes. I could do that.
Okay, so then we got to make sure that you apply. And if you guys would like to have Anton as your tutor, then you guys should also apply to JYU. If you want to learn more about the University of Jyväskylä, check out our website, our Instagram, our TikTok. I think we're basically on every social media platform. So. People manage too much of it. And if you want to learn more about these, a little bit of, personal conversations, feel free to check out more episodes of JYU for you. And if you're a student athlete, leave us a comment, a like, ask us any questions. We're looking forward to hearing from you guys. Thanks again and have an awesome weekend. Kiitos ja moikka. Cheers.